Hello, listeners, and welcome back to 20 Minutes a Day. Let me tell you, it is good to be back for these bonus episodes. We know many of you enjoyed season one, and so we first of all want to thank you for listening and for sharing your feedback. And if you're just joining us now for the first time, then welcome. We're glad to have you with us. Season 2 is coming this fall, but while you wait, we'll be sharing bonus episodes where Sarah and I take turns interviewing some of our amazing English coaches. So we hope this will be a great way for you to get to know a few of our team members, hear some language learning tips, and practice listening to natural, clear English at the same time. So today, I'm kicking off this bonus series with our first coach. So let's jump right in. Hi, everyone. Today, I would like to introduce you to one of our coaches, Jessica. So I'm really excited to have you here today. Hi, Jessica. Welcome. I thought maybe you could just take a few seconds to introduce yourself a little bit before we jump into the juicy questions.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Erin. I'm happy to be here. My name is Jessica, and I currently live in North Carolina in the United States, but I grew up in Michigan, so right on the border of Ontario there. And I've been living down here in North Carolina since 2020, which is also the year I started teaching for Verbatim. So I'm excited, happy to be coach here for almost 5 years now. So it's gone by quick, but enjoying it. I live with my husband, and I just had a daughter. So my daughter is Nelda, and she turned 6 months old last week. So that's been a lot of fun. Mm-hmm.
So cute. I haven't seen any pictures yet, so I don't know what she looks like, but I imagine she's a cutie.
Yeah. I feel like to some extent all babies look the same, but she does have blue eyes, which I have brown, my husband has blue, and we're not sure which way they will swing yet. So we'll see. Babies change a lot in those first few months, I feel like. Mm-hmm.
My sister had like bright blue eyes when she was younger, and then they started to darken a little bit, and now she's like 21, so she has like brown around the insides and then bluish gray around the outsides. It's really interesting.
That is really cool.
So who knows? I actually didn't know that you grew up in Michigan. So did I.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I grew up just about an hour outside of Detroit in a small town called Highland. So that's where I grew up.
I grew up in this tiny town called Fairview. It's like closer to the north of the Lower Peninsula.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was just about to pull up my hand. For the people who do not know, Michigan kind of looks like a bunny jumping over a mitten. So when we get together, anyone asks where you're from, it's hard not to point.
Yeah, I'm here.
So I grew up down here. Yes.
My mom and I actually just did, well, last September, we went back because we were there for we had lived there for about 6 years before moving to Florida, which is where my parents are now. So whenever I introduce myself, I always say I'm from Florida because that's the recent. And when you've lived around, it's always hard.
I had some Massachusetts thrown in there too. So it's when you ping pong, it's hard to answer the question.
Exactly. Me too, Massachusetts.
How funny.
Because you said Central Mass when we were talking earlier. Yeah. And for me, it's southeastern Mass.
Okay.
Where I'm from, Westport, Fall River.
Very nice. That one's not as fun to point to on the hand. It's just a rectangle.
But anyway, so it's so nice to talk with you more.
Yeah.
I'm able to get to know you a bit more as our coach, and our listeners are able to see all the different coaches that we have.
I've enjoyed watching the podcast too, because the nature of this, I don't get to know everyone so well when we're just meeting. So it's fun to get to see a little different side.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this bonus section that we have leading up to season 2.
Yes.
So I thought I would just jump in with some questions to get the conversation started. What words or expressions just kind of get on your nerves?
Expressions are so funny. So I've been thinking about them a lot too, because with what Verbatim is doing, posting the AI of our images with the different expressions and idioms
Yes.
each week on the page, I actually help design a lot of those AI images, or I'm plugging them in and kind of spitting them out. And it's kind of funny what the computer thinks some of them mean, because I feel like as an English speaker, a lot of them are self-explanatory when you grew up saying them or hearing them. But recently I realized that even if you're a native speaker, you might not always know exactly what the expression is. And so my example of that, one expression that I feel like I'm not sure it gets on my nerves, but I just kind of chuckle every time because I refuse to say it correctly, is the expression "play it by ear." And if you listen close enough, you'll hear that I said it incorrectly, because the expression is "play it by ear." It originates from jazz music, when they would just listen and play along. I am not a musical person, so that never clicked for me. And I remember my mother using this expression a lot growing up, but I thought she was saying "play it by air," AIR, instead of "play it by ear," EAR. And air made sense to me because another English expression is, "oh, go with the flow, see where the wind takes you." And I thought, oh, "play it by air" was we're going with the air, we're going with the flow of the wind. And now it is a running joke with my husband and I, because every time my phone will correct it and I will go back and put it the way I think it should be. So that is an expression I'm never going to say correctly, and I'm okay with that. Play it by air, play it by ear. They sound very similar if you're talking fast, so I just never picked it up.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They do. I mean, my parents always use "play it by ear" a lot too, and it's what I've realized is that, depending on where you are, like I'm in Montreal, but I'm also surrounded with a lot of English speakers. But I've realized that a lot of the expressions here, even though they're in English, have been affected by French. So we don't have the same types of expressions. So when I say "play it by ear," a lot of like native English speakers in the area don't really know what I'm saying, because it's been an expression that's used in the States, but not really in like Quebec area. So
is there one that you think is used a lot in your area that is not used in the States? Like, did you notice any differences?
Well, there is an expression that is used in French that is more, I find, more of a, like, I don't know, newer generation kind of a slang, or a city slang or something. And it's like a mix of English and French, because it uses the slang vibes, like the vibes of a place, but it's used in like a different context. So like the expression is "c'est quoi les vibes?" So like, what are the vibes? But it's used in like, okay, what are we doing next? Are we going to a restaurant?
Like, what are you feeling versus like, what is the feeling of the place? How are you experiencing the feeling? Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. So I find that, like, if I were to, well, first of all, part of it's in French, so most people in the States would be like, what? But it's also, again, an expression that's just used in this area. So I find that fascinating. But in terms of English expressions, I find that there's just less expressions used in general. Yeah, maybe it's because there's already a lot of other languages in the area, so communication is easier without expressions when you've got a bunch of languages together. But I don't know, I'll have to definitely keep my eyes or keep my ears open during that time.
Expressions also remind me of slang words, and I don't know, I would imagine you might feel this more than I have, but living in several different regions around the States, and I'm not sure if it's the same with different regions in Canada, but I feel like I have become this conglomerate of like different words that are used in some places versus others. So Michigan, and I believe this might be a Canadian saying too, but I think I say "ope" or "sorry" way more than the rest of my peers and things. Like the other day I ran into a door, like I walked into the door and apologized to it, and everyone was like, "what is wrong with you?" But I think I grew up saying it a lot. I lived in Massachusetts, so then "wicked" was very popular, and not in like a dark connotation, but wicked being a good thing. So they say, "oh, that was wicked fun, that was wicked smart." So I think there was when I was in college more, I think I was saying that a bit, where then I went home for break and my parents are like, how did you pick that up? Because you're not from there, but if you're around it, it's easy to pick it up.
Yeah.
Down here where I live now is kind of just at the top of the south of the United States. So they say y'all for you all. So now I started to say y'all a bit too. And so I'm like, oh goodness, at least I'm not like saying, oh, y'all and wicked in one sentence. At least not yet. But it's easy to kind of pick up those terms when you're surrounded by them in the different settings. Or to not know what expressions mean in different places. Because in the South, people say bless your heart. And that's kind of like a stereotype phrase, I think, for the South.
Yeah.
But I have found...
Oh, bless your heart.
I know. And I have found, especially involved in my church, multi-generational, and some people, older people, sometimes really mean like, oh, you poor thing, bless your heart. But sometimes it's like a judgmental phrase of, oh, bless your heart, you don't know what you're talking about. So those phrases regionally can be very tricky if you don't understand all the meanings.
It's very true. And then if you go and say wicked in that context, they're like, what are you saying?
You would think it would be, terrible and dark.
It's true though, because I also grew up in the Massachusetts, Michigan, Florida, and my parents grew up in Massachusetts, Rhode Island. So a lot of the slang and expressions that I learned from them have been passed on to us. But they don't get used in that context. My sister still lives down in the South, and so I feel like her way of speaking is more Southern than mine is, because when I went to study for university, I came up here to Quebec, and so it's even more muddled and harder to kind of trace through. But I don't know if this is true for you, but I find that if I'm on a call with my sister who speaks with more Southern expressions, a little twinge of a Southern accent, I will kind of revert back to that to that accent.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating.
Yes. My husband often says my Michigander comes out if I'm there for a couple of weeks, and you just pick it up.
As soon as I come back from Florida, because we're in North Florida, so it's also kind of like into that Southern part. Exactly. So we've got Southern food, Southern accents, expressions, all of that. My sister-in-law is like the first one to be like, whoa, you sound different.
That's funny.
But it's always fascinating. We were talking a little bit about communicating and finding the best ways to communicate in different environments. So I just thought this was an interesting hypothetical question for you. Would you rather only be able to communicate with hand gestures for a year, or only be able to speak in rhymes? The rhymes can be like a rap or I don't know, anything like that. So what are you kind of thinking?
So I do feel like in general, rhymes and raps are probably more effective communication, but I would pick hand gestures because I actually studied American Sign Language for 3 years at university. So I have a pretty good proficiency in sign language. At least American Sign Language. What I would think I would run into is that I would be speaking in sign, but not everyone would be able to understand.
Yeah.
But that's still what I would pick because I feel like I would be a more effective communicator knowing ASL.
Okay.
But so that's what I would pick because I already know effective hand gestures. And then talking through though, I feel like not everyone would be able to understand them. So I'm not sure if I would really be using sign language a lot or just gesturing like crazy. But I'm not sure how much of the video you can see. I am already a hand gesturer, even if I am not signing. My tricky thing though, is I have found, I gesture a lot. And so I gesture a lot in sign language. And I have found, to like my embarrassment a little bit, that I find that is my like go-to. When there is a wall in communication, I will start gesturing and I will start signing, which is great until I am on a call with a 5-year-old who only speaks French, who I'm trying to teach English to. And I am just like saying red, like as if she's going to understand, not from my speech in red, but by sign language. I don't know.
Sign language on top of that.
Yes, but Canadian sign language, again, there's no way that 5-year-old always knows sign language, but also French Sign Language is different than American Sign Language. So it's not the most effective tool, but it is a tool I think I use a lot. So hand gestures and sign language would be it for me.
Yeah, there are some that are a little easier to pick up than others, but my mom actually grew up teaching us like the alphabet.
Oh, great.
So like A, B, C, you know, and like so on and so forth. And so when we're in a situation where maybe she's on the other side of the room and I'm over here and she's trying to communicate, we won't use the whole sign thing, but she'll try to spell out something that she's trying to communicate to me. So that's something that I know, but I've always done that, like grown up. I grew up doing that with my mom, and so then the first time I tried to do it with my husband, we were on the other side of the room, and I'm like trying to communicate something with him, you know, and he's like, "What? I don't know. I don't know what you're saying."
You just want everyone to have the same understanding you do. I have found that too with my husband as well. He's got a pretty good proficiency at this point, like, you know, he's picked it up, but sign language, like any language, there are different like idiosyncrasies or just different ways to communicate. And because he does not have the time learning that I have, you know, he's just kind of picked up the alphabet here and there for me. He will like spell like this. So that's my name, Jessica. But I'm like, why are you yelling at me? Are you mad? Because going like this, A, B, C, it's like you're yelling versus staying here quietly. So, you know what I mean? Even though it is a gesture-based language, there are still different like inflections and tones that you can use. And it's just a reminder of you never know how it's going to be received if you don't have the full picture, I think. So he's got water down pretty good and please.
Oh, good. So water, ready, for those who can't see the video, she's got three fingers up and she's hitting them against her chin for water. And then you were saying when you were yelling, you kind of
pushing your hand forward. Like so making those harsh movements versus keeping your hand where you're spelling in like one place. Soft. Gentle, yes. So you can communicate tone or volume with how aggressively you are moving your hand.
Okay, interesting.
So there's just different ways to communicate there too. And it's a good reminder for me, probably with French or with Spanish, with any language, there are just different tone and inflections you don't always know that you have to pick up just so many different levels when you're learning a new language.
And that's all we have time for today. So thanks for listening. But don't go too far because we'll be back next week with part 2 of this interview, where Jess shares more about her journey as an English coach and about her teaching style. So, signing off from Montreal. See you next week.